Okay, I'd like to call the Freedom Community High School District 77 regular board meeting of November 19th, 2020 in order. Would you call the roll, please, Kendra?
Mr. Parrish? Mrs. Staub?
Here.
Mr. Reynolds? Mr. Henning? Mr. Haas? Mrs. Miller?
Hold on a second.
Yeah, they're all sitting here.
I know,
Yeah.
but we need to hear them to make this.
All right, sorry, there, we're good.
I'm gonna start over. Mr. Parrish? Mrs. Staub?
Here.
Mr. Reynolds?
Here.
Mr. Henning?
Here.
Mr. Haas?
Here.
Mrs. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Gout?
Here.
Mr. Wilkerson?
Here.
Okay, that's the quorum. Let's stand for allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, any agenda changes?
There's none.
Public comments, any public tonight? Okay.
Well, let's, hold on, see if there's anybody online.
Oh, okay, I forget about that.
Does he have to do that blurb about the virtual?
No, because we put it on the,
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we-
All right.
took care of it.
Okay, it sounds like there's no public comments. Does anybody have any questions, corrections, or additions for the consent agenda? If not, I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Staub,
Second.
second by Mrs. Miller. Kendra, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Gout?
Yes.
Mrs. Staub?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Mr. Henning?
Aye.
Mr. Haas?
Aye.
Mrs. Miller?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Committee reports.
We had a building and grounds and a finance committee meeting at 6 o'clock. Went through just some of the timeline and some of the numbers on the construction project. The bids were opened up, the bids were put out for bid this week. They will close on December 9th. We'll have the bid opening on December 9th. A big discussion in that meeting about the construction phase. Phase 1, which is the first floor construction. It's a pretty tight construction window, so there's likely to have to be some adjustments to some calendars, whether that takes place this school year as far as having to use remote days to get the construction project started, or possibly having the next school year start a few days late. So that is something that I'm going to work with the construction manager and the architect with to try to put together the best plan. The other part of that meeting was a discussion of the levy. We do have an item in the agenda where I will discuss a little bit about the levy later in the meeting. But other than that, unless anybody else has any additions.
Okay, hearing none. Next item, the student report. Mr. Wilkerson, do you have something for us tonight?
Yes, I do. So just focusing on the academic school year, we are coming up on Thanksgiving break, and many of the students will be having sort of their big tests for the semester, or not for the semester, but before we go on break on Monday and Tuesday. As far as athletics goes, all indoor group and sporting events are currently on pause due to the governor's announcement as a result of the rising coronavirus case numbers. The winter and sports activities will resume as soon as it is deemed safe to. Performing arts, the band sold desserts this month as part of a fundraiser, and the wreaths they sold last month will be coming in very shortly. The Winter Guard just had tryouts, but now they're on hold. And I actually had some students reach out to me and wish that I would say some requests, comments to the board. The first student wanted me to request that the Chromebook shutoff time be pushed back to a time later than midnight. And the reason they gave me was because they said that most students would only want to be on their Chromebook that late would be so that they could finish their homework. And then a separate student approached me and requested that school should go remote starting December 10th through the end of the semester. And the reason they gave me was that 14 days after would be Christmas Eve, and the 2 weeks prior would allow students and staff to see their families for the holiday, which would allow them to quarantine. And then that wraps up my student report for the evening.
Okay, I guess as far as that Chromebook, didn't we do something with that last year? Or-
We did, I believe it's 1 o'clock. Is that right?
I'm double checking. But if you guys would like, I can give you reports of the percentage of students who are using it for
schoolwork.
educational purposes after those hours.
I remember those demographics.
And it's one of the reasons that I made that request a couple of years ago is because we were in the 85 to 90% of the use after midnight was for staying up late, watching YouTube videos and aimless things that were non-education related. And the board asked me to switch that, and we did make those adjustments at the time to accommodate those few students who needed that extra time because they were working jobs, et cetera. So I'm looking now to see what that is, but I was pretty certain it was 12:30 a.m. is what we had it set to, but I'm going to take a look at it now.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Robeson? If not, we'll move on to the principal's report.
Okay. So I have a couple things for you. Right now, school pictures are currently scheduled for December 3rd and December 4th. We usually do these at the beginning of the year, but pushed them back to this time frame. Full remote students are invited to come for pictures if they should so choose to. Johnston's was here this week to take class ring and graduation orders. Students could turn orders in at school, or they could also order online. The last day right now for the semester is December 18th. The current plan is that assignments, quizzes, tests, and project completion will continue through December the 18th. First semester grades will not be posted until we return to school in January. I gave everybody a blue folder, and this is so that you have the same information that we have. And I already have to make one change, and this is the latest Department of Public Health and COVID information as it pertains to schools. The first form, actually, we are probably going to have to revamp this starting tomorrow based on what I received tonight, and I'll explain that here momentarily. The second letter is if someone isn't going to have their child tested, maybe they've been exposed, then this gives the parents a way to write the letter for them to come back after the quarantine time if they're not getting a test. So whether they're positive or negative, right now for a student to return to school, they have to have the quarantine letter from the Department of Health. That all changed tonight, but not all parents choose to get their child tested, which is perfectly okay, but they also needed a parent note to be able to come back, so Mrs. Travis put this together. So these are just examples in case you have questions about what kind of paperwork we're having coming in and out, or parents asking you questions. But again, I'm going to talk about the change to the first one in just a minute. The next paper in here that looks like this is the guidance tree that we get from the Illinois Department of Public Health in regards to schools. And it talks about how in this scenario, this is when they can return to school. In this scenario, this is when they can return to school. So this can be very confusing. I know Mr. Breaking has sent out all the updates to teacheries for parents to look at. So then, what we've got in the last one kind of explains that whole chart. And these are just all the frequently asked questions. So when people look at all that chart and they're like, oh my gosh, can my kid go to school? Do they have to get tested? Do we have to do this? This is the frequently asked questions that we're answering on a daily basis. So again, this is just information for you. I know I could have put this digitally, but if you're trying to find your board reports and all those pages and you've got parents calling and asking questions, this way you have it. So here's the change, and we just received this tonight. Up until this point, the school was not responsible for excluding students if there was an exposure. The health department would do that. I mean, we could investigate, we could give the health department names, but the health department would call these students and these parents and they would say that you have been exposed. They would issue the quarantine letters, they would issue the time and investigate with a tracker of when the student could come back to school, okay? We just received this email tonight, and we kind of heard that this was coming because there is a surge in cases. The health departments haven't been able to necessarily keep up with all of this, and this is some of the problems that we've been running into in the last 2 weeks, is people maybe can't find somewhere to test, or they're running out of tests, or they're having to wait a couple days to get a test, and then the tests are backlogged, so it's taking sometimes 5-7 days for people to get their test, and then because the health department is backlogged, people aren't able to get their quarantine letters to get back to school. So we just got this email that the schools are going to start taking over this process. So this might actually work in our favor a little bit. Mrs. Travis was actually a little bit relieved because we're still trying to get all these letters, and the parents are calling and we can't get our letter, and this way we have a little bit more flexibility or ability to get these back and get these kids back in school. And this is what I'll make a copy for you tonight, and I'll add it to your folder. But in this, we'll have the positive case's name, date of birth, contact information, the date of the exposure, and the date that the quarantine notice is going to be issued. And they sent us a form letter for this. So this is what we will be sending home with kids now, it looks like at this point, in faculty. I don't know if you had a chance to look at this yet. But it will have on there exactly what needs to be told to the parents, what the symptoms are, the exposure date, and then it says, once the exposure date has been determined, they can return 14 days after the date. So all of this is on the form that has been a combination from the Department of Health and the Regional Office of Education. So more paperwork, but it may give us a little more flexibility to get these kids back. At the same time, it does make you a little bit nervous because now we're kind of a little bit more responsible for dictating and sending people home, which some parents have been, most parents have been absolutely wonderful, but this is really hard on parents too when you have to call them and say, okay, by the way, you need to come get your kid because they have a headache, they're going to have to be out, or they're going to, have to get tested for if you think it's not related to COVID, and it's definitely been a process. So we'll see how this works out, and this is just new tonight, so we really haven't had a chance to test this out, but we'll start tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. A couple of positive things. I do want to give a shout out to Mrs. Travis. She has been the nurse of all nurses, and she has done an amazing job communicating with parents, keeping up with the testing and quarantine changes, and there's been a number of them since the start of school. We manage all the return letters, all the testing result paperwork, but every time I go into her office, I think she just has that phone, talking to the next parent, She has really just done an outstanding job with everybody, and I'm so blessed that we have her at our school. And then also I want to give a shout out to Mrs. Massey, our attendance secretary. Between juggling the attendance and the subs this year, she has been amazing. If a teacher's son or daughter's quarantined, they're home, and trying to make all these last minute changes, and if people have similar symptoms, we have to send them home and get classes filled, and I think her first 4 hours of the day is managing the subs and getting everybody in place for the day, because some of it is last minute just because based on how people are feeling, and she's done a really great job too. So we're getting there. Every day's a process. When something new comes up, we're like, okay, we'll go today, and we'll just change and we'll get it going. So that's all you can really do, and a lot of it's out of our control, but everybody in our school, teachers, admin, secretaries, nurse, everybody is just really doing a great job. Some really positive news. Mrs. Karen Miller has been awarded the Emerson Excellence in Teaching Award. The Excellence in Teaching Award program is sponsored by Emerson and annually recognizes approximately 100 educators from the St. Louis metropolitan area, from kindergarten teachers all the way through college professors. And they are all who represent excellence in their field, so congratulations to Karen Miller. In the spring, we're also going to have 2 student teachers. Miss Raina Hodge from McHenry University. She'll be working with Mrs. Asher in 9th grade English. And Mrs. Brianna Ellison from SIUE will be working with Mrs. Stewart in the art room. So, thank you.
Okay, any questions or comments for Mrs. Young? Okay, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
All right, the first thing is a little somber moment. Tammy Carpenter passed away, and Tammy was the longtime reporter. The board, covered our board for the Tribune, and I'd just like to send the board and the school's condolences to her family and wish them a quick recovery from their loss. Another item, I don't want to belabor this new information that Ms. Jung talked about, but I've already started getting emails from other superintendents that are balking at the idea that now the schools have to do all this work and the health department's not, so who knows where this is going to go. This is new territory for everybody, and every time there's a change, there's a wall that has to be hurdled, so we'll see where this ends up. I attended the annual TIF meeting for the Village of Freeburg a couple weeks ago. The village has actually done a really nice job. They're planning on paying off the TIF that includes Country Mart sometime in 2021. When that happens, we should see a $3 million increase in our EAV, which should work out to be about $100,000 additional revenue to the district. So I anticipate that'll happen. I don't know that'll happen in 21. It'll probably more than likely happen in 22 if it's paid off in 21. So that was a positive note from that meeting. Each year, under the new, or not new now, it's a couple years old, the Every Student Succeeds Act, each school gets a designation. Last year, if you recall, Freeburg was awarded an exemplary status, which is the highest rating. They have decided because of COVID that they are not going to go back through, because a lot of this is based on test scores, and obviously the test scores are probably not true to what the students are capable of because of the situation that we're in. So we'll have one more year exemplary, so that's a very nice honor to have. Update on our sound system in the gym. We did send the funds in to purchase the products. Working with Coach Lahr, he's going to use several different of his funds to cover most of the cost. The district will only end up having to pay about $8,200 of cost for the new sound system. I'm hoping that's going to be up in Christmas. We'll talk about this in a little bit, but hopefully one day we'll be able to play that for a big, large crowd again. And the last thing I have is the election that happened in November in Illinois. The graduated income tax did not pass. Pritzker has basically said he's going to hold that, or was going to hold that over basically schools, that if that didn't pass, we would probably not get our evidence-based funding. Obviously, that's going to come into play when the budget all gets worked out next summer. But my biggest concern, we get about $40,000 in evidence-based funding money, which is a lot of money, but in the scheme of it, it's not a huge chunk. But I'm more concerned that they don't go backwards like they did several years ago and start prorating money, and they still fund schools at 100%. So I'll keep you up to date on that, but that's all I have.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Frecking? Okay, being done. Old business, consider changes to the FCHS's return to school plan.
This is something that I've been talking to Mr. Parrish about a little bit. As everybody knows, we're currently in a hybrid school day. Half the kids come on Mondays and Thursdays, the other half come on Tuesdays and Fridays with students in full remote. This conversation started about 3 weeks ago, before the big influx of the rise in the COVID cases. And what I'm interested in is putting the committee back together that developed our original return to school plan this summer, to develop a plan on how do we start bringing kids back, and when does that happen. I am not asking to bring kids back at any certain time. How I've described it to the board, to the teachers, is whether it's January 1st, March 1st, or August 1st, we're going to eventually bring the students back, and we need to have a plan on how we're gonna do that. You know, and what's the best way to do that, the healthiest way to do that, what metrics do we need to follow? What I don't want is to all of a sudden have the expectation that the kids are coming back, you know, on January 1st, and we don't have a plan put together. So what I'm asking is for the board to direct me to reform this group. We can work together. We will get back to the board, hopefully in December, but at the latest in January, with a plan on how we think the best way is to look at bringing more students back into the building.
You really don't need a motion to do that.
We don't need a motion unless somebody just adamantly opposed to it.
Pardon me?
We're just directed me and
Okay.
just publicly that the board knows this is the direction that we're going.
That makes absolute sense.
Gary, Dennis, Mike, you okay with,
Okay, with me. Good. Yeah. I am.
okay, sounds like you've got the,
I will report back.
we're okay to do that.
Mhm.
Okay, item B, digital record project update.
I talked about this a little bit this summer. I think I talked a little bit at a previous board meeting or a recent board meeting. Mr. Alt and I have been meeting. We feel like we have a pretty good plan put together to take all those records that we have stored in what is going to eventually be a stairwell to the second floor and get those scanned. We have to buy a little bit of equipment. It's not going to be very expensive. Two of the ladies, our two new lunch ladies, I've talked to them and they are both willing to come in and help do that scanning. And I want to give Mr. Alt pretty much all the credit for doing all the legwork on this. So that will take place. My hope is to have this done by March. I think it's going to take a little bit of time. I think they said there was 40,000 documents in there. Just wanted to give you an update. I think it's going to save us quite a bit of money. Estimates were $25,000 to $40,000 to do that. I think we're going to be able to get it done for quite a bit less than that.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Franking? Okay, looks like new business, consider adjustments to winter sports schedule.
Well, when I wrote this, a few things have happened since I wrote this. So as you know, that the IHSA and the ISBE and the governor's office were not on the same page. The IHSA, which governs all of our athletics, came out and said that they wanted to go ahead and move forward with the basketball season. The other winter sports were all going to be playing or participating in their activities. But the ISBE and the governor's office did not want that to happen because of all the issues that were going on with COVID. Within the last 2 days, the governor came out and basically put a pause in for all indoor activities, which would cover all of our winter athletics. Since then, the IHSA met today and have come out and said they are going to follow that guidance. And they have issued a pause as well for all the winter athletics. The bad news is we have no idea what that pause is. They don't give us an end date for that. They haven't told us what metrics they're going to use to bring that back. It's just basically we're just kind of sitting here. All they said is that the winter sports season has basically been paused and it will restart. So when we find out more, we'll let you know. Again, the board doesn't have to make any decision. I had talked about a couple different options for the board, but I think they're all on the same page now. So I think we're going to have to take the guidance from them of when they will start. One of the things that the IHSA found out was once they put out that they wanted basketball to go forward, a lot of schools voted to follow the IHSA. I'm sorry, several schools voted to follow the IHSA. The majority of the schools in the state were going to follow the ISBE and not have basketball. So we were going to have about 1/4 of the schools that were willing to play basketball, 3/4 were not. And so I think that helped move the IHSA in the other direction. So there really isn't any action. If anybody has any questions on this, I'll be more than happy to answer them. I'll keep you updated as we move forward with this.
Okay.
No future reevaluation dates even?
December 2nd and December 14th, there's 2 meetings the IHSA have.
Okay.
So those are the regular meetings. Who knows what they will produce? We're pretty close to December 2nd, so I really doubt that there's going to be a lot of change, especially the governor's office and ISBE have drawn lines in the sand and do not want to cross those lines, and they pretty much have said that. So.
Has the IHSA dropped their lawsuit, or is it on pause?
I don't know, Gary. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Item B, approve SWIC FCHS running start agreement for 2022 school year.
This is now annual business where we approve our agreement to allow our students to attend SWIC in the Running Start program. I think the numbers this year have dropped a little bit. I think we're about 3 students, and I think the highest we had was about 6 or 7. So recommending that the board go ahead and approve that.
I need a motion to approve the,
I'll make that motion.
yeah, okay.
That's Gary.
Gary made the motion,
And Mike second.
and Mike second.
Yep.
Okay, Kendra, call the roll, please.
Mr. Gow?
Yeah, aye.
Mrs. Staub?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Mr. Henning?
Aye.
Mr. Haas?
Aye.
Mrs. Miller?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item C, approve tentative 20 tax levy.
This is the annual business where we approve the tax levy. Remember, this is the estimate of what we anticipate our revenues are going to be from next year's taxes. There's a long process. There's been a few adjustments made. One of the most important parts of this is the board is very interested in keeping our tax rate flat. And with the work that we put into the levy, our tax rate should stay flat or possibly drop a slight bit. I am recommending that an EAV be set of $311,694,126. That would represent a 4.99% increase with the revenue less bond and interest payment. That would bring in an extra $394 million $394,000 to the district. I'm anticipating a lot smaller increase in EAV, but we always try to set the EAV larger so that we capture all of the revenue.
Any questions or comment on the levy? If not, I need a motion to accept the levy.
I'll make that.
Mike made the motion,
I'll second.
second by Mrs. Miller. Kendra, call the roll, please.
Mr. Gow?
Aye.
Mrs. Staub?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Mr. Henning? Mr. Henning?
Aye.
Mr. Haas?
Aye.
Mrs. Miller?
Aye.
Motion passes. Looks like we're down to board correspondence.
None?
Any agenda items?
None.
None. Do we have a reason to go into closed session?
Yeah, for personnel and then also matters of possible litigation.
Okay, I need a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
So I'll second.
Moved by Mrs. Staub, second by Mrs. Miller. Call the roll, please. Kendra?
Mr. Gow?
Aye.
Mrs. Staub?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Mr. Henning?
Aye.
Mr. Haas?